Hello, everyone. I believe I was muted. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for ExhiBits Series number 4, Voices for Today and Tomorrow, the Murals of Brittany Williams, with our special guest, the artist Brittany Williams. And she'll be joining us with Miranda Mims in a conversation about her work. So if you're not familiar with our exhibition, we want more and we will have it. We hope that you'll get a chance to take a look at it, the digital exhibition. We'll have the link in chat as well. And some folks have asked about where we came up with this title. And it is from a quote from Sojourner Truth that our colleague Autumn Haig, who is the main curator for the exhibition, that says, "Women don't get half as much rights as they ought to. We want more and we will have it," which is as relevant in 1853 as it is today. So these exhibit events are opportunities for us to share with you a little bit more about the exhibition that we did that was supposed to open on March 16th, 2020. And we all know that week was a memorable week that we basically shut down and went home. So we reimagined this exhibition in the digital realm or the virtual realm, and we've made that available online. So there'll be a link in chat, and we hope that you'll enjoy it and get a chance to browse and take a look at what we've done. I want to give just a little bit of an overview of some of the things that we've done and some of our collections, and to give you an understanding of how this all works and what the exhibit is about and the connection between the exhibit and today. So our department, the Department of Rare Books, Special Collections and Preservation, has a lot of different exciting materials, rare and unique materials like books, letters, diaries, manuscripts, and other things like that. And we also do exhibitions, and we have digital collections that we make available for folks to use, and we're open to the public, though that's a little bit different right now because of COVID, but we are a place that you can learn a lot about a lot of different aspects of our collection, or a lot about the history of our community and beyond. So the exhibition has a lot of different kinds of materials in it. One of the reasons why we did this exhibit is because of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. So we have a lot of wonderful collections relating to women's suffrage, including papers of Susan B. Anthony and people like Isaac and Amy Post, who were Rochesterians that were involved in many different aspects of life in Rochester in the 19th century. We also have a lot of wonderful books, things that were published locally or beyond, that reflect women's history and women's experiences in the area. And we have a lot more than that, lots of wonderful things that can be used in our collections. And these are featured, elements of these things are featured in the exhibition and the digital exhibition. And the way that we've divided it up are several different areas. The exhibit focuses on, of course, the 19th Amendment, as well as women in the University of Rochester, women in the arts, and in roles in work and politics, education, philanthropy and religion, and activism and nonprofit organizations, excuse me. There are also many women that are featured in the exhibition. Of course, Susan B. Anthony, who is well known in Rochester and all around the world. And then other folks who are also well known, whose papers are part of our collection, such as Midge Costanza, Ruth Scott, the Honorable Louise Slaughter. And then we have other sections of the exhibition that explore single items and that offer lots of different insights into the history of women in our community. And with that, I am going to turn the program over to my colleagues and to introduce our guest speaker today. We're really lucky and thrilled to have Brittany Williams with us. Brittany is an artist based out of Rochester, and she has worked shown in public places, companies, editorial publications, and in galleries. And Brittany's art focuses on the lived experiences of her surroundings, and she uses subject matter such as everyday people, patterns, and vivid color palettes to reflect on situations that are ever present around her. And joining her is Miranda Mims. Miranda is the Joseph N. Lambert and Harold B. Schleifer Director of Rare Books Special Collections and Preservation at the University of Rochester. And we're really excited to have them enter into conversation and to talk about what we commissioned these wonderful pieces for Brittany, a way of both looking back and a way of looking forward in our exhibition. So with that, I am muting myself and turning this over to Brittany and Miranda.
Thank you, Jessica. Hi, Brittany. It's so wonderful to have you here with us to speak about the murals you created for Women Running Rochester exhibit. I remember when we first talked a couple of years ago now about how to conceptualize the vision for the exhibit and how your work could be that profound visual representation of it. It was definitely our hope to reflect on the history of achievements and progress of the women in Rochester, which Jessica just reflected on, but also to look to the present and the future. And what you created really captured that vision beautifully. So this is one of the murals that you created, although you created 3. Can you give us a little background on each of the pieces that you designed?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having this exhibit and having me a part of this project. And hey, everyone who was there, even though we can't see you. When you all first contacted me about the project, I immediately was like, yeah, like, absolutely. I would love to have something in University of Rochester. And I, with the concept, I know at first we were looking for more of like a wood panel type thing. And, we went through the logistics of it and we realized like, oh, we can't necessarily have a wood panel hanging on the panels inside of the cabinet that was at the time. But, I figured it out. I was like, okay, what can we put up that is more lightweight, more long lasting? And I said, why don't we just have like a paper mural? It's normally people would say that's just a big painting, but why not just put it on paper, which is something different. I never did like a paper painting of this size, so it was quite challenging. As you can see, I have like the paper right here, and you can just see how big it is and how rolled up and tedious it can be. And like just flattening that paper was just time consuming. I had to use like 20-pound weights to hold one side to make sure it doesn't roll up and to cut the other side. It was a task, but I got it done. And while visiting the university, I made sure to pay attention to who was around. And luckily during that time, I believe it was an exam week, because there were a lot of kids in the library.
Yes, it was towards the end of the semester.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this is perfect because everyone is in one space. I get to see who looks like what, who is at this university, who will be seeing this mural, and I took that in consideration when completing this mural.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I didn't realize that you were taking in the landscape of the university as you were thinking through this process. Can you walk us through? So we have one of your pieces here, and it would be great to sort of get sort of the behind the scenes process as you were creating that particular piece. And this was, now, actually, Brittany, did you entitle any of these pieces? This is the second piece that you created?
I didn't necessarily title them. I just kind of like went within the theme. I know like when looking at references, I tend to just make up an individual. It's not specifically like a person that I photograph. It's more so of taking images that I like and kind of like gravitating towards certain things about that image and just creating a totally different person that doesn't exist. But for whatever reason, people still find a way to compare it to someone maybe that they know, or maybe someone like that looks like them. They might say like, is that me? And you have to explain like, no, or is it me, you know, like me personally, and I have to explain that. But that was the process of that part. And I also wanted to just show a representation of women that you don't normally see like represented, whether it's in the media, books, or in positions of success. You don't normally see women who look like this, like the women with short hair, the woman with red hair and freckles, or the short blonde hair with glasses, and of course like someone with color hair, and even like Muslim women, you don't often see them being represented in certain spaces. But I know for sure, like, where we're in the time that we're living in right now, those things are changing. People are voicing out that they're not seeing these images, in those media spaces, or even in the spaces where they provide occupy. And so, it was important for me to not only see like, okay, there's students like this that go to the school, but future students who might come to the school and visit might think, okay, that's a representation of me on this wall, or whatever space that it's in. They might consider going here. Like, it's just like, okay, like I see myself here. And even with the color palette, I also wanted to make it stick out, make it kind of look sort of aged like, but in an abstract way. In whatever space that it's in, those colors are going to pop out, and it doesn't take away from the portraits of the women on there.
Right, it doesn't. I mean, they're striking, and each and every single one of them, as you look at them, it's exactly right. You see some sort of reflection in each individual, which I think really resonates with a lot of the people who come across, in particular, this piece, and conversations that I have already had with people who have seen this piece. It has just been overwhelmingly positive. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, Brittany, is this idea of seeing yourself or seeing people represented, and what that means. And it is very valuable, I think, for a lot of people when they see this piece in particular. So walk us through this piece. Walk us through the design of this piece. I think if we advance a couple, we'll see some of the behind the scenes when you first started creating this piece.
Yeah, so this was the original sketch that I had planned out. And, at first, like you probably saw with the second slide, but I can, talk about that too, with the Rochester City logo. At first I had like the Rochester City logo and all 5 women surrounding it. And it had like the concept with the flowers and the same color background. But, when I was sketching it, I was just like, it just seems too much going on with the image. And I just ended up coming up with some sort of sketch of just a profile visual of the women. And I was just like, I wanted to make it look like they're all looking in the same direction, but it also symbolizes moving forward as well. And I sketched out in pencil, and I took some color markers and just like, figured out some ideas and some hairstyles and things like that. And, in order to like play with color, those little highlights of color wasn't there. That was the time I used Procreate for the first time. So I was just getting tips from other artists that I know of how to use the device. And I was just playing with color and seeing how these colors would match, what image and what portrait, and, is this too much or is this not enough? And yeah, I just wanted to show those women first and then play with the background later. And the colors in the background are also reflective on the women in the image. So that was that process of going with that.
Well, you did a good job of playing with color with using that technology for the first time. Is
Yeah.
there another, do you have a other slide that looks at more of the background for the pieces? We keep advancing.
So this was, or that, the first two images were the sketch of the women. So I took the sketch that I just explained, got my little projector and just set it up to, mirror onto the wall. And as you can see on this image, it took like every tack in my house to keep that paper on the wall. And it was just such a task. I don't know if you ladies saw that there's like so many little tack holes in the paper because I had to like tack each spot because it would just fall. I had to put that back up. But, I put that process on, and normally I start with the images first, but I figured that the background takes a lot of color, and, I'm very like, precise when it comes to having like a perfect square background or a rectangular background. So I made sure to just do that process first because I knew that that was going to be the hardest task of keeping that tape onto the paper and painting on the painting on top of the paper. But yeah, I just took some gesso, took that and painted that on there and took the image on there and just started doing the background first. And you could just see my little setup there, like keeping up my space and how that looks when I'm doing something like this.
Right. And how long did it take you to do each piece?
I would say this one specifically, because there were so many different color ranges that I had to use. I believe this one took me maybe 5 days to do. And the funny reason why it took me that long is because I've never painted someone Caucasian before. I've done a color pencil version of it years ago, but this was actually my first time painting someone like, who wasn't Black. And so I was having a little bit trouble, but I ended up, figuring it out, going back to what I learned about painting, dark skin or Black people. It's just like you use those hues inside of the skin. Don't think of, what's on the outside, think of what's in the inside. So you'll see like pinks, blues, green, some yellow tones, and, just going back to those fundamentals of when you're learning about portrait making, you think about those elements. So that's what took me so long. But if it was just something else, it would probably take me 3 days. But yeah, I just took my time and it just took 5 days.
I'm amazed that you say 5 days, actually. I thought you were going to say longer because it's just, it's so intricate and it's so beautiful. And it's hard for me to conceptualize that it could, it only takes 5 days. How long did it take you to do the, if we go back a few, to the Agitate mural, Organize, Agitate, Educate. How long did it take you to do this piece and what inspired it?
It took me like a day.
Oh, okay.
It's just like, filling in the color and just writing out the words. I put the words on Photoshop and, use my projector to just make the process easier. And, I remember you all coming to me and saying with this Susan B. Anthony quote, I figured like it was just straight to the point. And, what other quote could you use in a education space is to organize, agitate, and educate. And, right now you just see like, if there's issues going on, before you, speak your opinion about something, you should learn about it first. And then you come and ask questions of, why isn't this like this? Or how can we change this? It all starts from gaining the knowledge first before you speak about it. And that's what I, take with that quote is, once we as women organize together, understand our differences, understand that it's going to be a task to understand where each one of us come from and how we want the world to come about. But in order to make that happen, we have to educate ourselves first and understand each other's background and, not overlook each other,
Right.
put certain people in the forefront when there's issues going on.
Right. Yeah, well said. So for you, how do you see yourself in the representation of women artists, in particularly in Rochester?
How I see myself representing, I would say, just kind of being that person to not conform to like those societal norms, just being your own individual. I know like in some arenas you don't get allowed that space, and it can kind of deter you to not, go for those goals that you want. And just being able to just be the beat of your own drum, like do whatever you want. There's too many avenues out there to just conform to one thing. And, you see it in social media where people or women are artists and then they do something else. Or they, probably went to school for something, say a doctor, and, their family probably wanted them to be that. And then they turn around and say, hey, I want to do something different. And, I was, an example of that. I experienced that where, for 18 years of my life, it was just all sports. And, you think of yourself being that person, like I'm going to be a professional athlete, and everyone around you is thinking, yeah, you're going to be that, you're going to do that. We're going to be behind you when you do that. But if I were to do something different, am I going to get the same reception? And, for me, I took that risk to do something different and go outside of what people thought I should do and just be something different. And so I feel like especially with the younger women coming up, they can get, discouraged by what other people want them to do. And it's just like, no, like do your thing. Like, of course, there's going to be ups and downs, but, just do what you want to do. Make sure you have fun. Get help from other women that in those same types of fields. And, even with me, like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for other women, whether they were artists or, behind the scenes of, art or, not even in art, encouraging me to continue to do what I do and, be a representation of women to come in Rochester.
So it's the women around you that also help inspire you.
Yeah.
What else inspires you as an artist?
I say like just the everyday norm. I'm pretty simple. Like I like everything that everyone else likes, like whether it's sports, pop culture, music, like everything. I could just be listening to a song and just gain inspiration from that and put it into my work. I do this little thing, like I could be just shopping and like see a color palette that I like, and all of a sudden I'm like got my phone out and taking pictures of it. And of course my mom would look at me like, what are you doing? But just those little things inspire me. And when I first got into art, or when I first took art seriously, to me it wasn't even about representation. Like I wasn't going into art in that mindset. I was fresh off of college, and I had a job, and I just was looking at it as like, okay, I've made money from this before, I could make more. But it wasn't until my first mural in 2015 where I had people in the neighborhood coming up to me and just telling me how they felt about the mural that I was putting on Joseph Ave.
Mm-hmm.
And like just hearing their stories and just like little girls coming up and like wanting to help, and like even with them, they would point and say, that's me. And that was like the light bulb moment of like, this is just more than, this is more than me, you know, it's about
Right.
other people and how they see themselves in the work, and you know how they feel about it. Even like I even people who, you know, are critical of it, you know, I take in
Right.
that too. But you know, you learn that it's more than you, and that's what
Right.
inspires me to continue.
So, Brittany, as you know, archives are permanent, and they are the enduring story of our culture, society, and the people around us. So the pieces that you created here will be a part of the archive and will be a representation of your legacy. So what does that mean to you to have your work archived?
It's a pleasure to have it there, and you know, in the hometown that I'm born. You know, like if I look at this, you know, if I'm here 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you know, if that is still in the university, I could just look back at that and think like, you know, that was a time, and when I created that, like I had this perception of what the future would look like. And you know, you can only hope that it, you know, it does change in the future of how things are regarding women and with opportunities and how we're perceived in society. But yeah, like I even look at pictures from, you know, years before I even was here, and you see those pictures, and they still have an impact on you. And you realize during that time, like, wow, like they were going through this at this time, but they still had some sort of like, you know, light to the moment. You know, you look at those
Right.
images and you want to have that same, um, you want that same sort of like feeling as you
Right.
continue on, to create something that could potentially be timeless to someone else and inspire them to do the same thing.
Well, I'm very confident that your work, not just the pieces here, but your work across the board will have an impact for generations to come.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your process, for sharing just a little bit more about who you are as an artist as well. We, again, are very, very thankful and fortunate that you know, showed up and that you were willing and created these amazing pieces for not only this exhibit, but to be archived at the University of Rochester. So thank you, Brittany.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I'm gonna join in and say that was absolutely inspiring and incredible. Thank you so much to Brittany Williams for joining us today. And thank you for Miranda for those incredibly thought-provoking questions. And thank you for these incredibly enduring pieces of work that will be part of our collections and will inspire and thrill us from years to come. And I hope that folks who are watching today will take a moment and pick up a pencil and express yourself. Express yourself however it feels good. This talk and all of the exhibits in this exhibits talks in the series are being recorded, and we will have this recording along with questions. If folks put questions in the chat, we will be answering them and put them in a blog post. We will touch base with Brittany. I want to make sure that we can tell folks where they can, in reading the blog post, where they can see her work in the city, which I think would be amazing. And all of the exhibits are being archived on and made available on our blog. We have 2 more in this series coming up. Organize, Agitate, Participate, Meet Ruth Scott through her papers with special guest author, politician, and activist Ruth Scott. And on June 8th, we will be doing a talk on creating a stir with suffrage cookbooks with myself and Autumn Haig, who is the main curator for this, the exhibit, We Want More and We Will Have It, Women Wanting Rochester. So thank you all for joining us today, and a huge, giant thank you to Brittany Williams for your incredible work and your vision and your inspiration. Thank you all. Have a great evening.